What is up, Nico Nation? Welcome back to the channel. Snap count once again. We're doing the 2025 midseason review, weeks 1 through 11 in the books. Cannot believe it. I am your host, Niko Chambers. As always, Nico the Draft Guy. You can call me. I got my boy PDunn on the other line. What's up, dude?
What's up, dude? How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. I can't wait to get into this with you.
Yeah, I'm stoked. This could be
It's going
awesome.
to be a lot of fun. We're going to go straight into the content and we're going to talk about it. The shock meter. As you can see, we measured our shock through the first 11 weeks of the season. You see everything here. P Dunn, talk to me about the first thing that sticks out to you when you look on this.
Yeah, I think the Bengals being at a 1 out of 10 or, 2 out of 10 for their defense is, sad. If this was a sad scale, it'd be a lot different, but it's not. It's a shock scale. And so, they're bringing a new defensive coordinator with Al Golden, put a couple more pieces on that defensive line and it didn't work. They've still got to go back to the drawing board. And so we'll see, whether up high and whether, at the management levels of that team, they'll be able to really take a look in the mirror and decide whether or not they want to do some different stuff. But something's got to change, man. Like that. If I'm very glad I'm not a Bengals fan, because that's a tough spot to be, knowing that, they had one thing they needed to fix in the offseason. And like you said, it arguably got worse.
You look at everything on the list here. 4 out of 10, Chiefs being third in the AFC West. The only reason it's that way is because we both had them being third as the season started. So that's not a shock to us. That's a shock to a lot of you guys, though. I look here, I see Jackson Dart. The way he's revived this team, it's a 6 out of 10 for us. Um, Simply off the fact that, we knew he was a dog.
Yeah.
Did I think he can do what he's doing right now? Absolutely not. That's why it's 6 out of 10. Your Bears in the 8 out of 10 slot. They have a 1 game lead in the North. Pete, talk to me about that.
I love it, man. It's a lot of it's a long time coming for not only me, but a lot of the Bears fans. This is something that everybody's excited for. Whether or not it's going to end that way, I'm not as optimistic as a lot of Bears fans are. I think this team still has a long way to go, a lot of little things to fix. But when you think this is the first year in the Ben Johnson regime, and where this team has gone, just how, like you said, it's week 11, and they're already in this great of a spot, starting off rough. Like this team's 2-2 to start the year, and they're set like they're on an amazing streak. So we'll see whether it's sustainable. I would love for it to be, but really the good thing here is your outlook for the future. You're in really great hands with Ben Johnson at the helm.
And we saw a future in the Indianapolis Colts that we didn't think was bright, but it's
Man,
falling at the 10 out of 10 point on the shock meter. It's unbelievable. That'll take us into our next segment here, the QB revival era.
oh
Daniel
yeah.
Jones, just an unbelievable just journey he's been on, and look at where he's at now. What is your takeaway from what the Colts have done with him? Because going into the season with him and Richardson, we talked about it. We're like, Richardson, if he can't beat him out, it's ridiculous. But I apologize for saying that because Danny Dimes has been balling. What have they gotten out of him?
Dude, this is the perfect example to show you how hard it is to be a analyst, and to, this game is just wild. It's so unpredictable. I mean, no one thought this was going to happen. The most delusional Colts fan didn't even think this was going to happen. And here we are. And this isn't a fluke. This does not feel like a fluke. This feels like a sustainable, like long-term quarterback position that they have figured out now. And that's been the thing with the Colts for a while, going ever since Luck retired. They've been cycling out these 1 year quarterbacks, whether it was Brissett for a year. The list goes on and on of these veterans. And it looked like this was going to be another place where another quarterback went to die. And instead, we have seen the ascension of one of the top quarterbacks in the league.
And it essentially, I mean, that's what it was. It was a 1 year, $14 million deal. Prove it, I guess, if you will. I mean, we didn't know where Daniel Jones's path was going to lie after that, but he found a way to revive himself. And speaking of another quarterback that revived himself, obviously Sam Darnold, we heard about it last year, 14-3 with the Vikings, but the Vikings decided to move on from ultimately both of these quarterbacks.
Yep.
And Sam Darnold found himself a spot in Seattle where he is absolutely balling. They are 7-3. And they are right up there in that NFC race that is absolutely loaded. 3 year, $100 million deal was the numbers on that deal for Darnold. It the way that they packaged the money though, they could get out of the first year very easily. So with what you've seen, I mean, what has Darnold done differently?
I mean, I think this is an amazing look on Kevin McConnell. Really, I think that, but like you said, like a lot of people forget that he was with the Vikings last year. That was where he sat. He was, the backup quarterback to Sam Darnold, and he learned in that offense. And unfortunately, it seemed to work really well for two of the three quarterbacks in that room, and it's not working so great for the only one that they decided to keep on the roster. JJ McCarthy has really struggled. But man, Darnold looks good. Daniel Jones looks good. I mean, these two other franchises have their quarterback situation figured out, and you really do look at whether they made the right decision deciding to stick with JJ McCarthy.
And we'll never forget, obviously, Seattle trading away Geno to ultimately facilitate the move for Darnold. What has that move meant for them?
I mean, it really has looked great for the Seahawks, and it has not looked great for the Raiders. I mean, even last night, you know, watching Geno look like almost a shell of himself in the version we saw in Seattle, which no one saw him as maybe a top three, top five quarterback, but a good starter in the league, somebody that can obviously win you games and did with the Seahawks for a good amount of time. And so I think the version of Geno that we're getting with the Las Vegas Raiders is not the same that we saw. He is old. We've only had this window recently of him being successful, but he's had a long NFL career and he's getting up there in age. And I think this might be his last stint being a starting franchise quarterback, unfortunately for him.
What does this mean for ultimately quarterbacks in the league? Obviously, this is, I mean, we've had a surge of revivals here. Obviously, these guys, Gino was one of them.
Yeah.
Also, what does this mean for guys who kind of have had rough, rocky starts to the league? Maybe we'll talk about Anthony Richardson here. What does this mean for Richardson's career going forward?
I think the thing you notice with all of these quarterbacks that have done the successful thing is they found themselves a system where they're really at home, right? You see Daniel Jones finally click in an offense that he feels comfortable in, and a that's different for everybody. Kyler Murray's version of what an offense should look like is very different than what Caleb Williams looks like, right? And so you even see that from a year-to-year basis, like looking where the last time these quarterbacks started versus where they are now. And sometimes these quarterbacks get thrown into the fire, man. You look at where Daniel Jones was with the Giants, he got thrown into the fire. And, Sam Darnold, like, it took him a long time to find a situation where he could settle down and calm down and really not be so week to week riled up trying to analyze everything, just have time to learn in an offense and grow. And so this is a great understanding and a really good lesson, not only to quarterbacks, but to GMs is like, sometimes maybe it is the best route. You're not always going to get a Jackson Dart, CJ Stroud, the way that those quarterbacks come in as rookies and really get their feet under them fast. Like sometimes it takes a lot longer than that. And Anthony Richardson, similar with the Colts, he got thrown into the fire and we saw what happened there. Like I think the Patrick Mahomes example of what it looks like when you have a quarterback sit and rest and understand enough of offense works a lot more than it does when they're thrown in the fire immediately.
I think the formula going forward, as we look at the evolution of the NFL next 10, 15 years, I'm telling you, every team is going to have two quarterbacks who can play. There's going to be a developmental one, there's going to be a starter. And that's just where everything is trending to. So,
Right.
as we talk about developmental quarterbacks, we didn't think he would be a developmental guy, but Jackson Dart, I mean, just absolutely stellar season. We're looking at the first year interim reports for our rookies. And Jackson Dart is he the leader right now in the rookie of the year candidates for the offensive?
I think if Emeka Buka wasn't playing the way he has been, then I think he would be. I think right now, if you put a gun in my head and make me decide, I'm going to give it to Emeka Buka just because he's been so fantastic. It's there's so many times we give it to the quarterback, so it wouldn't shock me at all. Especially, we've got a long time left for the end of the season. I think Dart could certainly take over that award if he continues to find ways to win games with the Giants, but this really has been some stellar players in this rookie class. Even a guy like Tyler Warren, a guy that, a lot of people I don't think were expecting to be the rookie of the year thought he'd be a great player, but he's just been fantastic for the Colts. And so there's been a lot of great rookies and some guys like Cam Ward, Travis Hunter that I think were at the top of that list that people expected to be in that conversation and just haven't lived up to that yet.
So let's talk about some of those underwhelming starts. Obviously, see on the list Cam Ward. I'm not really high on the Connerly pick. We weren't like really high. They picked him above Simmons. He has not looked very well. It's taken Loveland for them to pick Loveland over Warren. It's taken a little bit longer. I think it's going to be a better pick than what it looks like right now, but it's taken a little bit longer. And especially when, Warren's balling the way it is, you got to sometimes rethink that. What is your takeaway with Cam Ward? Because I don't know what's going on. I know that they're terrible. Um, like what is your grade in the C category for him as well?
It's tough to try and differentiate the grade from him versus the situation he's in. And I think that a lot of people could have seen this coming where he's getting into a situation with, like, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year, like, Brian Callahan's gone by, what was it, week 6, week 7, like, I'm probably not going to give him, I'm going to expect a bad grade for Cam Ward. And so it's tough to try and isolate him from the situation he's in. Has he played good? No. But he also doesn't have like any good skill position around him. He has a bad offensive line that they overspent on. He's got a new head coach. He's got a new regime and a defense that is not helping him out much. And so it's tough to look at a first year quarterback, like a rookie quarterback in that situation and expect him to get an A grade when the team's as bad as they are. That's just not going to happen realistically. And so does this change my view of him in the future? No, I think he still has a really good chance to be a good quarterback. He certainly has not been this year and his team hasn't helped him out much.
My two least favorite picks from the first round of the draft were these two guys. We'll show the flashback.
Whoa, Matthew Golden at a C.
It kind of scratches my head a lot. Very much like the receivers they already got.
I totally disagree with you.
The Matthew Golden pick, we go back and forth on it all the time, and you're a lot higher than I am. But I just don't understand bringing in another receiver to this just very crowded receiver room.
And I told you this is the one landing spot that he could have gone where I was like, I don't know if I see it.
I think if anybody would be a bust into this first round, I think it would be him. I was always feeling that way on him. Shamar Stewart and Matthew Golden, I was so critical on. They've proven me right. They
Yep.
have had terrible starts to the season. You know, Kenneth Grant has been awful as well. I can't believe Caleb Johnson. I mean, we were very high on him. He's got under 100 scrimmage yards.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. The two receivers there at the bottom as well. But let's talk about the top two guys. What's going on in Cincinnati and Green Bay?
Look, man, you called the Matthew Golden one. You had that one. I didn't. I thought he was going to be really good in Green Bay, and he hasn't been. He's really struggled to start the year. And so that one is very surprising for me. Just Shamar Stewart, no one is surprised about at all. Like he was, and this is coming from a guy that had him as a top 8 player in the draft. I loved him coming out of, and I think I gave the pick a D when it happened because maybe a C minus. Like I was like, there's no way he's going to succeed here. There's no way this team's going to be able to develop him. He needs development, and there's no way this team's going to be able to develop him. And he's not getting developed. And I didn't think he was going to come in and light the world on fire, but he's like been lit on fire himself. Like this dude has not played well. He's played really bad. And so, you know, I think the Kenneth Grant one is another one that's really surprising for me. I think that was a player that a lot of people just saw as a really high floor player, and you were getting just a really good run stuffing defensive tackle, and he has not been that at all yet. He's really struggled to start the year. You look at Jack Bech and Trey Harris, both guys that we thought would be able to come in and work in those offenses, and neither of them have, especially with Besh, how bad that receiving core is. The fact that he still cannot get on the field and produce is you know, just shows how tough it is in this draft world. Like it's pretty crazy, man. There's been a lot of flunks out this year for sure.
I think the biggest shock to me looking at this is Matthew Golden. He's obviously in a situation. They take him in the first round. They need this receiver. They need this receiver. Christian Watson is not playing for the first half of the year. Then Reed gets hurt. So you're sitting there and you're like, okay, like we got a lot of decent receivers, but like, yeah, this is your opportunity to go out and prove it. And he's just not done that. I think the stat is Christian Watson in the last 4 games that he's been back has like 30 less yards than Matthew Golden has all season.
Yeah.
That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Um, Pretty unfortunate. And that Packers team really struggling as of late, but that'll take us in to the power rankings after 11 weeks. So much to unpack here. PDunn, talk to me about your top five.
The biggest standout in the top five, the one thing that we differ on is that I have not given up on the Chiefs yet. I still think they're a top five team in the league. I think they will certainly end the season hotter than they are right now. But you get into those first four, which we have slightly different arranged, but I think everyone can kind of understand that those are clearly the top four teams in the league. The Eagles, yes, are having some offensive woes. I think Saquon's showing his age more than people expected him to this year, and I think that the passing game is really taking time to develop, which you've heard a lot from AJ Brown specifically. The Rams look like world beaters. They look fantastic. And then Buffalo and Seattle, I think it says so much about Seattle that they played the Rams, and Darnold had arguably his worst game of the year, where he turned the ball over 4 times, and they lost by 2 points. You turn the ball over 4 times and you lose by 2 points to the Rams. I think that says more about the Seahawks than it does about the Rams getting that win. And so I think those are four teams that if you had to, expect, I think five teams. If those are, I would be pretty surprised if the Super Bowl winner at the end of the season was not in that group of five teams.
100%. Yeah, talking about those Seahawks, that's the exact reason why they're over the Bills for me. Just their defense is absolutely scary and they play unbelievable on the road. And that is something that a lot of teams can't really do that well. But I mean, under Mike McDonald, like they're just unbelievable on the road. So like even if the Rams do win the division and get the 1 seed, 2 seed, like playing Seattle as that 5 seed where they'll be probably playing Tampa or the winner of the North. Like that's terrifying. We'll put it here, we'll go a little bit back to your preseason rankings and mine also. You had Cincinnati as the 1 seed. You had the Chargers as the 2, Houston as the 3, Buffalo as the 4, the Ravens, Denver, and Kansas City as your 5, 6, 7 in the AFC. I had Buffalo, Baltimore, Denver, Houston, Cincinnati, the Chargers, and Kansas City. So the same type of teams. The team
Yeah.
that, isn't in the position that we were looking at, you have them rated a lot higher than I do,
hmm
but it's ultimately the Baltimore Ravens. What happened with them? Like, they were, 13-4, I think 14-3, 13-4 were our predictions for the Baltimore Ravens. What's going on with them? Like, can they resurge?
I don't think this one of the things that makes this so hard is there's no one that can predict injuries. No one can see that coming. And when you lose your star quarterback for the amount of games they did, as well as the other really critical positions that they lost on that team, specifically on the defensive side of injuries that they were dealing with, it's really hard to win games like that. I still have them at 6 because I think that this team is going to make the playoffs. I think they're still in a good position to win the North. And I think that if they do end up in the playoffs, like no one wants to play that team. No one wants to play a healthy Ravens. I don't care what their record was in the season. So I think this is a team that, because of the injuries, took a hit on their record, but I think is good enough to where they will be able to surge back and squeak in the playoffs and I think make a run. I mean, no one wants to play that team. No one wants to play a healthy Ravens. So
We'll switch to the NFC predictions from preseason. You had Philly, Detroit, Seattle, and Tampa as your top four. Then Green Bay, Atlanta, and Chicago. I had Philly, Green Bay, Seattle, Atlanta, Detroit, Chicago, and then Washington. The big one here and the disastrous really is the Falcons. We had them double-digit wins, yet they're sitting at 3 wins at the moment. What is going on in Atlanta?
I am shocked at the Michael Penix quarterback play. Truly, I think there was so many flashes of maybe not greatness, but talent, especially arm talent that you saw last year. And I think when you combine that with the fact that Drake London has been playing awesome this year, and I think that if you would have just shown me his stats that he has right now, I would have said that maybe 10 wins wasn't enough for this team. And so unfortunately, um, nothing else has clicked. The defense has not clicked. The offense is still struggling. I think you expected Bijan with Penix, with London, with maybe a Kyle Pitts with a resurgent passing game, and none of those things have worked. And so I think you start if you're a Falcons fan, you look at Raheem Morris, whether or not he's going to be around next year. I think you look at whether or not taking Penix the way you did was worth it. I think there's a lot of internal struggles that you have to view and really take a look in the mirror and say, what went wrong? How do we fix it? What's next? Because you still have a lot of talent on that team. I think defense needs to be invested in. I think the last 3 years, everyone has just predicted they're going to take an edge rusher in the draft, and I think that's been catching up to them that they haven't. And so there's a lot that needs to be fixed. But it's tough on an Atlanta fan, man. There's a lot of hope that they had going into the season. A lot of people thought they were going to be better than they were, and they just have not yet.
Big reminder to all the fans out there that the Falcons don't even own their pick this year. That goes to the Rams for the trade for James Pierce Jr. as they traded up to get him. I thought it would be a good move. I think it's turning out to be an okay move, but at the rate that they're going this year, I don't know, man. It's going to be a top 10 pick. It's going to be really bad. And the Rams, obviously, Stafford's aging. They have the opportunity to do what we just talked about, develop another quarterback, keep the
Yep.
dynasty rolling. It's
Yep.
unbelievable. Um, we'll move on here really to figuring out really what to make of weeks 1 through 11. I think the biggest thing that jumps out to me, it's just a year of parity all around. Like zero undefeated teams through week 11, zero one-loss teams through week 11. Um, like, what do you make of this? In my opinion, I think these are on the screen are the 12 top contenders. Obviously, you can make a case for the Ravens being thrown in there. Um, like, how do you decipher this week to week when you see what happens with the upsets and just like really good football being played?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that you look at historically when you view the NFL. You love that there is such a talent, like the talent gap is so small compared to other professional sports. And this year, that talent gap has just shrunk. And these teams that you think there's always, yes, the one team is way better than the 32nd team, but on a week-to-week basis, there's no reason that one can't beat the other. And we've seen that happen multiple times this year with pretty big upsets that have happened. And so it's pretty wild thinking that like you said, there's no undefeated teams in the NFL right now. And there's a group of teams at the top, but the fact that the best odds to win the Super Bowl is a very flawed Eagles team says a lot, man. It says a lot. And I think, yes, there's some teams at the top that I think could win it, but it's really tough trying to figure out why. If you put a gun to my head and maybe choose the Super Bowl winner, I'd be terrified right now. I'd be terrified. It's tough. It's really fascinating thinking about that. No one really has separated themselves yet.
It's like, how much do you trust the new teams that come in, like the Patriots or the Colts? They've had amazing seasons, but obviously no real history of repeating. Obviously, you have the Chiefs, but this has probably been the worst start in 5, 6 years for them. You have the Eagles, which, like you said, are flawed. You got these teams in the North that just like will lose like games that they should win and then make it really close. They're not really blowing out teams. The Bills lost to Miami last week, like 2 weeks ago. And then you got like, I think two really solid teams on both sides of the ball are the two teams in the top right, the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Bucks. I feel like obviously they're not getting as much, attention as they should for being in a loaded conference and stuff like that. But I feel like out of the NFC, I could totally see a realm where you see an NFC championship between those two.
Yeah.
And then in the AFC, I think that, obviously the Ravens aren't on this list. You got to throw the Chiefs out there. Like you don't know. I think the AFC is wide open, and
Oh,
it's completely wide open. The NFC is stacked, and like it's not in terms of like all the teams are really good, and it's like who's gonna win. It's the
yeah,
question of who's gonna win. AFC, I have no idea, out the window. But if
really,
you had to put
man.
money on it, you see the odds at the bottom. Like what is your bet?
I mean, I'd hammer the Chiefs. I'd hammer the Chiefs. I would go with the team that I trust to peak at the right time, and I think that's the Chiefs. I think that this is a team that, everybody's graph looks different on how they go throughout the year, and some teams start off really good and then make their way down. And I think that the Chiefs that I completely trust that coaching staff and Mahomes to peak at the right time and figure out how to win when it's January, it's February, and there's games that you have to win. And I trust the Chiefs more than everyone else to do that, even though it's maybe not the most stacked talent roster that they've had. And the offense certainly isn't clicking the way it has in the past.
You know who I'm going to go with?
Hmm.
Plus 1200 Seattle Seahawks. That's
Yep.
my bet, but it's not about me. We'll go into this really quickly. Super Bowl matchup. Can you make that for me right now? I'll remind you that your preseason one was Green Bay, Kansas City, Kansas City winning.
I think I would go Chiefs and Rams off the top of my head. I like your Seahawks. Um, I do still have the Eagles one in my power rankings, but I think if I had to pick, I'd go Rams and Chiefs, I think.
Interesting. I'm going Seahawks Bills. I think it'll be
Yeah.
very interesting to see
Yeah.
as we move in to PDunn's segment on the NFL Draft 2026 coming up. We got his first rankings of the year, 1 through 32. PDunn. I see a lot of names on here. Tell me about your rankings.
Yeah, so this is, way too early. Big board, we're starting. I can smell draft season coming. That's what we live for, man. So, the thing about this year's draft class that a lot of people need to understand before we get to April, and the faster you can wrap your head around it, the better, is that there's a lot of top tier talent in this class, and then it falls off really quick. And so, I'd had this conversation with you before. We were talking about it the other day. Like, I have maybe right now where this sits, I have 11 or 12 players I have firm first round grades on that I believe are worthy no matter the year. Like, because the draft, the grade stays the same no matter where the year, right? And so I have 11 to 12 players that I think are first round worthy players. Last year I had 34. I thought there were 34 players in that draft class that were worth that. And so that number is going to go up, as players perform in the college football playoff, as players, perform down the stretch as the season wraps up, as we're able to have more film analysis and I'm able to watch more games on players, that's going to change. Number's not going to stick at 11 to 12, but I don't think it's going to end up where it was last year or the year after that. So there's, with that being said, the contrary to that is I think these top 3 or 4 players in the draft are really good. Like these top 4 players are really good. Caleb Downs is one of the best prospects we've seen in the last decade. That is not an over exaggeration at all. He's the best safety prospect we've seen since Kyle Hamilton, and he's better. And so he's really good. Arguable generational talent, and that's pretty consensus across the board. Jeremiah Love is the best running back prospect we've seen since Bijan Robinson. He's better than Genty. He's going to be really, really good. And again, the sooner people can realize that, like, the better. And so Arvell Reese is a guy that really came on the scene recently. We're going to see how he finishes out the season. He's kind of what Jalen Walker, people wanted Jalen Walker to be, I think, with that guy who's you can play him at linebacker and at edge, and he's going to be really good at both. But he's bigger than Jalen Walker. He's more athletic than Jalen Walker. He's faster than Jalen Walker. He's more physical than Jalen Walker. He's smarter than Jalen Walker. He's what Jalen Walker should have been and maybe will be in the league, but he's elite. He's really good. And so Ruben Bain, you've got a guy that I have no idea how he's at 4, but he is a monster off the edge. He's a monster. And so there's 4 players right there that I think are borderline, like really, really good. Abdul Carter level players from last year when we had Carter. Like, think that level of player. And so those guys are really great. Those are going to be guys that play in the league for a long time. You get into the quarterback class, which is really deep. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be developmental guys, like we were talking about. Don't be surprised at all when the Rams draft a quarterback with that second pick, and it's not a guy you were expecting, but they're getting their guy. They're going to get somebody that's going to sit behind Stafford. And there's some really good ones here. Ty Simpson, I know he didn't have a great game over the weekend. I think he's one of the best quarterback prospects I've ever watched. Dante Moore might not come out this year. We'll see if he does. If he does, he's going to be a really high pick. I'm a little bit lower on Fernando Mendoza than everybody else is. I think he's reaping the benefits of that RPO scheme that Indiana runs a little more than I would be comfortable with. I struggle with the idea of him moving over to an NFL scheme immediately, but if the Rams get their hands on him, if the Vikings get their hands on him, if a team that can have him and teach him the offense and let him sit for a while, he's got all the arm talent. He's got all the arm talent ready to go. So this class is maybe not, or definitely not as deep as we've had in the past, but the top tier talent is there. A couple years down the road, we're gonna be looking at class, and there's like, wow, there's not a lot of great guys in that class, but there's some great guys that came out of that class.
100%. If you have, let's just go down memory lane here. Let's just go down the mock drafts. Let's just say the Jets had the number one overall pick. They need a quarterback. Who's going number one?
I think Simpson's going to win him. I think he's the best quarterback in the class. I think Mendoza might have the most arm talent. I think Simpson is slightly below that, but everything Simpson does other than that is fantastic. The only thing I struggle with Ty Simpson is he sometimes takes too long to assess the field before he snaps the ball. He's gotten in trouble for that a couple times. It's cost him a couple times, but that's a good problem to have because that means he's everything he's doing mentally looks like he's played football for 3 or 4 years, and this is his seventh or eighth start. And so there's people worried about that, but I think he's the best quarterback in the class.
We'll go a little switch over. We're going to college football. Talk to me what you see for the playoff. Who do you think is going to win it all for the National Football Championship?
Ohio State looks good, man. They look really good. And it's crazy because, we were watching the draft last year and, everything we did leading up to the draft, all that coverage we did, it's just Ohio State player, Ohio State player, Ohio State player, everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And then they're just as good this year. They reloaded just again. And so, honestly, everybody outside of them, I think, well, everybody has question marks because Ohio State hasn't really played anybody yet, but everybody else has really big question marks. And so we'll see what happens with Indiana. We'll see what happens with the SEC. I think there's probably 3 or 4 teams in the SEC that could get hot at the right time and make a push in the playoffs. But it's hard to say anybody other than Ohio State right now.
We're going to start seeing a lot more coverage on our favorite time of the year as we turn our calendars to the draft season. But we still got some more time here in the NFL. We still got some more time for some crazy things to happen. As Scott Hanson says, where wins become losses, losses become wins. The witching hour is upon us. And we got some bold predictions for you, PDunn. I see three crazy ones here. Talk to me.
I think Tomlin's done with the Steelers. I think that as amazing as he's been, I think that they will be ready to move on by the end of the season. I think that this is a regime that barely winning record hasn't been able to get over that hump. And yes, he's a coach that's worthy of it, but I think that at some point you need to move on. At some point you need to get ready to, try and get a fresh start. This roster is old. This roster needs to be, maybe it's a strong roster, but it's still a mediocre roster at the same time. And there's some things that they really need to fix before they're ready to truly compete. I think the Chiefs get hot at the right time, like I talked about, and I think they win the championship. And I cannot believe that it is a hot take to say that the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, but here we are. I think that they're going to get hot. I think that that team knows how to win. I think they will win, and I think they're going to really shock everybody at the way they come on at the end of the season. And so, last one, Vegas needs a restart, man. This team cannot keep trying to do this win now, win now, win now. Pete Carroll's really old, and they tried to construct this roster in a way that they would have a reason to compete, and instead they're one of the worst teams in the league. And so I think this team is going to get rid of a lot of assets, maybe Crosby, maybe either Brock or Genty. I highly doubt it's going to be both, but maybe you get shocked with one. They load up on picks the way the Jets did. They get ready for this 2026 and 2027 class. The 2027 class is looking fantastic. The Jets loaded up in that year, 3 first-round picks. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to try to do the same thing. And so I definitely think Vegas is next on that hot list that is going to try to move on from this regime and get started on another one.
Who do you think, if Mike Tomlin does get fired, like what's the premier destination for him? Because he's going to be automatically the number one candidate on everyone's team. And
For
honestly,
sure.
there may be some situations where, you fire your current coach just to get him.
Yep.
So what do you see as like the premier spot if he does leave?
I think you could. see him with the Giants. I would not be shocked at all. He feels like someone that could return that program and that, you know, team to something that they've been before and they haven't been able to get back to. I think that he would instill a culture in the Giants. But it's different. It's still that hard-nosed team. They still want to get back to that, but they arguably already have a better talent roster than the Steelers do. And look at where the Giants wins are versus where the Steelers wins are. With a rookie quarterback, with a rookie running back, with a second year like amazing receiver, like I think that would be an awesome situation for him.
I agree. I'll go into mine here. I think Kyler Murray is done in Arizona. I think that there's a weird thing going on. I'm not really sure what happened with his injury. I know they put him on IR. It didn't really make sense to me though, because one week he was supposed to he was like days before starting, and then now he's on IR. Don't want to speculate, but I think he's played his last game in Arizona. And I think that come the 2026 season and the off season, I think he's going to be traded. I would look at a team like the Jets, who clearly can't develop a quarterback. Um, they clearly can't really, you know, foster a quarterback in general. But I want to give a little bit more leeway to what Murray could do in their offense compared to what Fields is doing. I think it would be a good spot because obviously Jets have the capital to trade for that, and I don't think I don't know what the package would be, but whatever it is, they have the capital for. Second one, it's going to be all three wild card teams in both the AFC and the NFC races. They're going to be from the same division. So you're either going to have in the NFC, it's going to be all from the North or all from the West.
Mm.
And then I think in the AFC, it's pretty clear cut. It's going to be all from the AFC West. And I think that's pretty simple to say. And then I think Baltimore's winning in the North. I don't think this is really honestly a hot take, but we got to throw it in there. Um, I just think it's going to happen. Like this Steelers team, and I mean, we don't know what's going on with Rodgers and his injury, and this Ravens team starting to catch fire, winning four straight. Like it's going to be very interesting to say the least. That'll be it today for us and our Snap Count. We thank you so much for watching. I want you to stay tuned because pretty soon, in about a month, maybe two, we'll be into draft series era, full swing ahead. We got so many things for you. We got a potential podcast in the works. We got so much to do. We got so much experimenting to go through, but it's all up to you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and we will stay tuned for more stuff coming up. Thank you guys.